The nail was smaller than a grain of corn. That was what made it cruel. It had been waiting in the wagon rut, half buried under white road dust, until Lian Chen put her weight on the wrong part of her boot. The leather sole split. The iron point drove up through cloth, skin, and the thin courage she had been living on for 2 days. She did not scream. By the summer of 1881, in the dry country north of the Owyhee Hills, Lian had learned that a scream could be taken as an invitation. A complaint could be called insolence. A frightened girl could be turned into a story men told each other with laughter in it. So she went down on one knee in the dust, wrapped both hands around the bundle tied against her chest, and swallowed the pain until it became just one more stone inside her. The road stretched in both directions. Behind her was the mining town of Mercy Flat, where her father's laundry had been sold from under her the week after he was buried. Ahead of her was a hard ribbon of heat, empty as a lie. She was 19 years old. She had one spare dress, a sewing roll, a blue tin of tea, 3 silver coins, and her father's account book wrapped in oilcloth. That book was the heaviest thing she carried, not because of its weight, because it was the last place where his hand still moved. Lian tried to stand. The nail bit deeper. Her vision flashed white. The bundle slipped. A page from the account book slid loose and fluttered across the road like a wounded bird. She lunged for it. That was when the shadow fell over her. Not a cloud. There were no clouds. A horse and rider had come up without sound, blocking the sun so completely that the whole road cooled around her. Lian froze with one hand on the paper. The rider sat above her on a dusty roan horse. He was long in the shoulders, lean from weather, with a dark hat pulled low and a rifle boot on the saddle. He did not smile. He did not hurry. He simply looked down at the girl in the road, the torn boot, the bleeding foot, and the book she had reached for before she reached for herself. "Easy," he said. The word was quiet. That made her more afraid. Men who meant harm did not always begin loudly. Lian grabbed the page, clutched it to her chest, and tried to crawl backward. The pain caught her ankle and dragged a gasp from her throat. The rider lifted one hand from the reins. "Don't move on that foot." She kept moving anyway. He swung down from the horse, but he did it slowly, as if every inch mattered. He unhooked a canteen, took one swallow first, then set it on the road between them and backed away. "Water," he said, "nothing else." The canteen sat there in the dust, close enough for her to reach, far enough that he would not have to touch her. Her mouth had gone so dry her tongue felt sewn to the roof of it. The last water she had drunk came from a ditch with mosquito skins floating on top. Her pride still rose in her, thin and shaking, but thirst was older than pride. She reached for the canteen. The water tasted of warm tin, leather, and mercy. When she had finished, she held it out without looking at him. He did not take it. Instead, his eyes moved to her boot. "That nail has to come out." Lian's hand tightened around the canteen. He must have seen the panic come back into her face, because he stepped behind his horse, took a small knife from his saddlebag, and laid it on the ground beside the canteen. Then he stepped back again. "You can do it yourself," he said. "I'll turn away." And he did. He turned his back to a girl with his own knife in reach. That was the first impossible thing about Gideon Ward. She pulled the nail loose with trembling fingers. Blood welled through the torn cloth. She bit the inside of her cheek until she tasted salt and iron. When she looked up, he was still facing the horizon. "There is a spring house at my place," he said, 3 miles west. "You can ride in the wagon. I have no wife. I have no children. I do have shirts that need mending, bread that needs making, and stock that needs more hands than mine." He paused, not turning. "I pay wages. Room is separate. Door has a latch on your side." That was the second impossible thing. He knew which words mattered. Lian looked back toward Mercy Flat. Somewhere behind that heat shimmer, her father's shop sign had already been painted over. The woman who bought his wash tubs had told Lian there was no room for extra mouths. The men outside the freight office had watched her leave with the flat amusement people saved for dogs that had been kicked once too often. Ahead was a stranger. Behind was certainty. She wrapped the account book tighter in its oilcloth. Then she nodded. Gideon Ward's place was called Cinder Creek, though the creek itself was no more than a silver thread slipping through willows before disappearing into thirsty ground. The homestead sat low against the wind. One raw board house, one barn, a smokehouse, a corral, a kitchen garden gone mostly to weeds, and a line of cottonwood poles marking the irrigation ditch that kept the lower meadow alive. It was not pretty. It was not welcoming, but it was honest in the way a shovel is honest. Everything there had a purpose, and everything looked as if it had survived by refusing to fall apart. Gideon showed her the small back room. It held a rope bed, a cracked wash pitcher, a wooden peg for clothes, and a window that looked toward the creek willows. "The latch works," he said, touching the door from the outside with 2 fingers. "Test it before you sleep." Then he set her bundle down and left. Lian stood alone in the room until the silence stopped ringing. She tested the latch. It held. Only then did she unroll her things. The blue tea tin went on the window ledge. The sewing roll went under the bed. Her father's account book went beneath the loose floorboard beside the wall. The small kitchen knife she had taken from the laundry went under her pillow. For the first week, she slept with her hand wrapped around its handle. The work at Cinder Creek was hard, but it made sense. Before sunrise, Lian lit the stove, boiled coffee, and mixed bread in a chipped yellow bowl. She washed shirts until her knuckles cracked. She cut strips from old flour sacks to bind her foot. She learned which hens pecked, which horse kicked, and which floorboard near the stove moaned under weight. Gideon was not a talkative man. He said thank you as if the words cost money. He ate what she cooked, left wages in a tobacco tin every Saturday, and never entered the back room. That did not make Lian trust him. Trust was not a door that opened because a man remembered to knock. But fear began to change shape. It was no longer a hand around her throat. It became a chair she kept near the wall, close enough to reach, but not always under her. On the 9th evening, Gideon came in from the lower meadow with dust in his hair and worry in his mouth. "Supply run tomorrow," he said. "Mercy Flat." Lian's fingers stopped over the mending basket. "No!" The word escaped before she could hide it. Gideon looked at her, then at the mended boot beside the stove. You need shoes that won't take another nail. You need cloth that has not already lived 3 lives. And you earned the money yourself. I can write a list. You can, he said, but a list cannot try shoes on. The next morning, the wagon rolled into Mercy Flat under a sky bleached nearly white. The town noticed them before they stopped. Men outside the feed store turned their heads. 2 women under parasols slowed their steps. A boy pointed until his mother slapped his hand down, not from kindness, but from the shame of being seen staring. Lian kept her eyes on the boards of the walkway. The general store smelled of molasses, lamp oil, wool, and old tobacco. Gideon ordered flour, salt, coffee, horseshoe nails, axle grease, and a bolt of plain brown cotton. When Lian reached for the cheapest pair of shoes, a voice behind them filled the aisle. "Well, Ward, I heard you had taken in something unusual." Amos Rusk stood between the cracker barrels and the counter, dressed in a city-cut coat too fine for the dust on his boots. He owned the freight team, 2 hayfields, half the ditch company, and enough debt from other men to call it influence. His eyes traveled over Lian slowly, as if deciding what price belonged on her. Gideon did not move at first. That was what made the air sharpen. Rusk smiled. "Does she answer to English, or do you point at things?" Lian felt heat climb her neck. She had heard worse. That did not make it smaller. Gideon set the sack of coffee down. "Her name is Miss Chen." Rusk's smile thinned. "Miss, is it?" Gideon turned then, placing himself between Rusk and the shelf where Lian stood boxed in by dry goods and the counter. His voice stayed low. "Step away from her." No gun came out, no fist lifted, but the room understood violence had become possible. Rusk laughed once, too loudly. "Careful, Ward, you are already short of friends." "I was not spending them well." The storekeeper looked down at his ledger. Rusk leaned to see around Gideon's shoulder. "Some strays cost more than feed," he said. Then he left. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the lamp chimneys. On the wagon ride home, Lian held the new shoes on her lap. She wanted to say thank you, but the words gathered behind her teeth and would not come out. Gideon kept his eyes on the road. After a while he said, "He owns too much." "Then why speak?" "Because he does not own that." Lian looked at him then, not fully, just enough to see the side of his weathered face, the tightness in his jaw, the old anger he had chosen not to spend in the store. That night, long after the lamp was blown out, she woke to the sound of a board groaning outside. Her hand found the knife. She went to the window. Gideon was walking the ditch line under moonlight with a shotgun resting in the crook of his arm. He stopped near the cottonwood poles, looked toward the dark road, and stood there as if guarding not a house, but a line no one else was allowed to cross. Trouble came 7 days later. It arrived in the afternoon, wearing a deputy's badge and Amos Rusk's smile. The deputy read from a folded paper while Gideon stood on the porch, hat in hand, saying nothing. The notice claimed Cinder Creek had been taking water from the Rusk ditch unlawfully. It claimed the lower headgate sat on Rusk-controlled flow. It claimed Gideon had 20 days to cap the gate, move his ditch, or appear before the county board and pay damages he could not afford. Lian stood behind the curtain and listened. She knew enough English law from her father's customers to understand the teeth inside polite words. If Gideon lost that water, the meadow would burn. If the meadow burned, the stock would go. If the stock went, the ranch would follow. Rusk was not trying to win a ditch. He was trying to empty a man. The deputy folded the paper. Board meets on the first Monday. Gideon nodded once. Rusk let his gaze drift toward the window. You should have kept your place simple, he called. Complications draw flies. Lian stepped back from the curtain as if he had touched her. When the riders left, Gideon remained on the porch until the dust settled. At supper, he ate 3 bites and stopped. It is not your doing, he said. Lian looked up. I did not ask. You were thinking it. She was. That was the worst part. She had been trained by hard years to believe that any kindness shown to her would eventually cost the giver more than she was worth. Gideon pushed the paper across the table. Rusk wanted this place before he knew your name. The notice lay between them, covered in official language. Lian studied the ink. The English was smooth, confident, and full of borrowed authority. Men like Rusk loved paper when paper could be bent into a weapon. Her father had said that once, not in those words. He had said it in Cantonese while teaching her to add columns from a railroad supply sheet. Paper is a fence, little Reed. Learn where the posts are. She had been 11. She had believed every lesson could protect him. It had not. The days that followed became smaller and sharper. Gideon rode the fence line before dawn. He counted haystacks twice. He measured the ditch flow with a marked stick and wrote the numbers in a stub pencil that snapped twice from pressure. Lian cooked, mended, hauled water, and watched him prepare to lose with dignity. That angered her more than panic would have. On the 12th day, 2 of Rusk's men rode across the lower meadow and drove a spade through the side bank of the irrigation ditch. By the time Gideon reached them, water was pouring away into the sage flat. There was shouting, then the heavy crack of a rifle stock against wood. When Gideon came back after dark, his lower lip was split and one sleeve hung torn from the shoulder. Lian said nothing. She brought water, clean cloth, and the bottle of spirits he kept for horses. He sat at the kitchen table while she cleaned the cut above his eye. His hands were closed into fists on his knees. Do not go back tonight, she said. I have to stop the washout. You have to see in morning. He gave a short laugh that held no humor. If I wait till morning, I lose half the ditch. If you go blind from blood, you lose all of it. He looked at her. For the first time, something like surprise broke through the exhaustion. You give orders plainly, Miss Chen. My father said clear words waste less time. That softened him. Not much. Enough. He let her bind the cut. The storm came near midnight. Not rain enough to save them, only wind and hard bursts of water that slapped the roof, shook dust loose from the rafters, and turned the damaged ditch bank into black mud. Lian woke from a dream of the laundry fire that had taken the last good month of her father's life. For a moment she was back in Mercy Flat, smoke in the alley, white men shouting about buckets, while Chinese men ran until they were blamed for running. She could not breathe. A pan slipped from the shelf and struck the floor. Gideon appeared in the kitchen doorway with the shotgun down at his side. He saw her standing barefoot beside the stove, both hands pressed to her chest. He did not ask foolish questions. He set the gun in the corner and lit the lamp. Then he sat at the table and waited. After a long time he said, "My sister's name was Ellen." Lian turned toward him. He looked into the flame, not at her. She was 16. Took a stage west because she thought there would be work in Winnemucca. Driver put her down at a way station after she got sick. Said he could not risk the passengers. By the time I found out and rode there, she had been buried 2 days. His voice did not break. That made it worse. I passed people on the road after that, he said. For a while, I told myself a man cannot save every soul he sees. He looked up then. When I saw you with that torn boot and that book in your hands, I heard myself saying it again. Lian's throat tightened. And did you believe yourself? No. The storm filled the room around them. For the first time, Lian took her father's account book from beneath the floorboard while Gideon was present. She set it on the table. The oilcloth was worn white at the corners. My father wrote numbers for men who would not let him sit beside them, she said. Railroad foremen, freight bosses, ditch contractors. They paid him less because they thought he would not know the difference. Did he? Lian opened the book to a page of neat columns and tiny characters. He knew every difference. Gideon leaned forward, careful not to touch the paper. For 2 nights after the storm, Lian sat with the account book, the county notice, and Gideon's old deed spread across the kitchen table. At first, she did it because grief had made sleep impossible. Then she saw a name, Cinder Creek Cooperative Ditch. Not Rusk Ditch, not Rusk Company. Cooperative. The name appeared in her father's account book beside a payment for copying records 13 years earlier. Lian turned the pages slowly. Her father had copied everything in his careful hand. Share numbers, headgate locations, assessments for lumber, the names of farmers who had paid for the original ditch before men like Rusk arrived to buy up the desperate. Share 12 belonged to Ward Homestead. The location note did not mention the lower headgate Rusk claimed. It read, "Measured from black basalt tooth above First Willow Bend." Lian read it twice, then a third time. At dawn, she woke Gideon by putting the book on the table in front of him. "Where is Black Basalt Tooth?" He stared at her, still half in sleep. "What?" "In your ditch, First Willow Bend, Black Basalt Tooth." The color left his face. "There is a rock shelf above the old gate." "Show me." They rode out before breakfast. The first willow bend lay above the lower meadow where the creek curved through a narrow cut. Most of the water now ran below it because spring floods had chewed the bank and shifted the channel over the years. But above the bend, half hidden under weeds and silt, stood a black wedge of volcanic stone shaped like a broken tooth. And beside it, buried in mud, was the squared timber frame of an old headgate. Gideon knelt as if the ground had spoken. "My father said there had been an older gate," he whispered. "I thought it was washed out." Lian opened the account book to the copied record. The share was measured from here, not from Rusk's lower ditch. Gideon looked at the water, the old timber, the stone, then back to the book. For the first time since the notice arrived, he smiled. Not broadly, Not like a happy man, like a man who had found a loaded rifle under the floor at the moment the door began to open. They dug for 3 hours. By noon they had uncovered enough of the old headgate to prove it had not been imagined. The wood was dark with age, but the iron strap still held the numbers stamped into it. 12. Lian touched the mark with 2 fingers. A number was not a miracle. A number was a post in the ground. Now they knew where the fence really stood. The county board met in the schoolhouse because the courthouse roof had been torn open by spring weather. Every bench was full. Men came because Rusk told them to. Women came because they wanted to see who Gideon Ward had ruined himself protecting. Boys hung outside the windows until the deputy chased them back. Lian sat beside Gideon with her hands folded over her father's book. She could feel every stare in the room. Rusk stood at the front with a rolled map, his coat brushed clean, his smile restored. His argument was simple. The present water ran through his ditch. Gideon's gate took from it. Therefore, Gideon owed damages. The board liked simple things. Simple things were easy to vote on. Then Gideon stood. "I have a record," he said. Rusk laughed before he could stop himself. "A record from where? Your barn wall?" Gideon looked toward Lian. The room shifted. Lian stood. The laughter began in corners first, not loud, worse than loud, soft enough for everyone to pretend it was not happening. She placed her father's account book on the clerk's table. "My father copied the original Cinder Creek Cooperative Ditch record in 1868, she said. Her voice trembled once. Then it steadied. "The Ward homestead holds share 12. The measuring point is not the present lower run. It is the black basalt tooth above the first willow bend." Rusk's smile vanished. The clerk leaned over the book. "You read this?" "Yes." "All of it?" Lian looked at him. "Yes." Gideon unwrapped the iron strap they had cleaned from the old headgate and laid it beside the book. The room went quiet. Not respectful, not yet, but quiet enough for truth to enter. The deputy rode with 3 board members to the Willow Bend that afternoon. Half the town followed in wagons and on foot, because humiliation is the one harvest every town helps bring in. They found the basalt tooth. They found the old gate. They found the stamped number, 12. They found that Rusk's lower ditch had been cut years later to catch water that had always belonged, by share and original measure, to the Ward homestead. The board did not apologize beautifully. Boards rarely do. They wrote a finding. That was better. Rusk's claim was dismissed. Gideon's water right was confirmed. Rusk was ordered to repair the damaged bank and pay the survey fee himself. By sundown, Mercy Flat knew what had happened. Not the way Lian would have told it. They said the Chinawoman had found a paper. They said Ward had been lucky. They said Rusk had been careless. People will do almost anything to avoid saying an underestimated person was right. But the ditch ran clear into Cinder Creek Meadow again. The grass came back first in faint green threads, then in patches, then in a deep late summer sweep that made the horses lift their heads from it as if surprised by abundance. The house changed, too. Not all at once. A white curtain appeared in the kitchen window because Lian cut it from a flour sack and embroidered a narrow blue border along the bottom. The garden rose straightened. the root cellar filled with jars of beans, carrots, and plum preserves. Gideon's shirts began to hang from the line with careful patches instead of hopeless tears. At supper, silence no longer sat between them like a guard. It sat like a tired dog. Some evenings, Gideon read aloud from the newspaper and stumbled over city names until Lian corrected him. Some mornings she stood beside him at the ditch gate, making notes in a new ledger while he measured the flow. The town did not become kind. Kindness was too much to expect from a place that had practiced cruelty until it felt ordinary. But the general storekeeper learned to say Miss Chen without choking on it. The deputy tipped his hat. And Amos Rusk, after selling 2 freight teams to cover debts he had kept hidden too long, left Mercy Flat before the first frost. A month after the first snow silvered the willows, Gideon drove Lian to the county clerk's office. She did not ask why. She had learned that some silences were not traps. Some were gifts being carried carefully. Inside the office, the clerk brought out a paper that had been written in a clear, formal hand. It was not a marriage paper. Not yet. Gideon had asked no promise from her that she had not freely given. It was a partnership filing. Cinder Creek Homestead and Share 12 of the Cinder Creek Cooperative Ditch, held in joint interest by Gideon Ward and Lian Chen. For a moment she could not read the words. They blurred. Then they returned. Her name. Not tucked in the margin. Not hidden inside her father's book. Written in the county record where men like Rusk had to see it. Gideon stood beside her, hat in both hands. "You saved the water," he said. "A man should know what he owes." Lian looked at the paper, then at him. Owing is not the same as belonging. "No," he said softly, "it is not." He took a breath. "The belonging part is yours to decide." Outside, wagon wheels cut black lines through fresh snow. The whole town seemed hushed under winter, as if the land itself had taken one long breath and held it. Lian thought of the road where the nail had found her. She thought of the page blowing loose. She thought of a stranger turning his back so she could hold his knife and still feel safe. Then she signed her name. Not the clipped version people could manage. Not the name Mercy Flat had tried to shorten into convenience. She signed it in full. Lian Chen. And beneath it, in smaller characters the clerk could not read, she wrote the name her father had given her. Gideon did not ask what it meant until they were back at Cinder Creek, standing beside the ditch where ice had formed along the edges and the water still moved dark beneath it. "What did you write?" he asked. Lian watched the current slip past the willow roots. "Little reed," she said. Gideon nodded as if this explained more than it did. "A reed bends," he said. "Yes?" She looked at the water, the willows, the black basalt tooth showing through snow like a piece of night left in the ground. "But it also marks where the bank holds." That spring, when the meadow rose green again, Mercy Flat had to learn the line it had failed to erase. It ran from the basalt tooth to the willow bend, from the old head gate to the lower field, from a father's hidden numbers to a daughter's steady hand, from a nail in the road to a name in the record. And for the first time in Lian Chen's life, the line did not push her out. It showed the world where she stood.